Rain pounded the airport roof as Angela looked back one last time at the glass doors that held her old life. She clutched her boarding pass to a foreign continent. Nick stood next to her, breathing heavily after running across the entire terminal. His shirt was soaking wet, but he was smiling. For the first time in 2 weeks, truly. "Are you sure?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Angela looked at him. At this man she'd known for only a month, and whom she'd loved as if she'd been waiting her whole life. "I'm sure," she said. "More than anything." They stepped into the departure area, leaving behind screams, threats, mothers' tears, and broken hearts. Ahead lay the ocean, and a life no one had promised them. It all began in a stuffy July cafe, where Angela had run to escape a sudden thunderstorm. She had half an hour before meeting a friend, and she was scrolling through her feed when a tall man with dark hair and tired eyes sat down at the next table. He ordered a black coffee without sugar and stared out the window. Angela noticed the ring on his ring finger, an engagement ring, and for some reason, it struck a chord with her. Not because she had anything planned, but because there was a loneliness in his gaze, the same loneliness she felt. "Do you mind if I sit with you?" he suddenly asked, nodding toward the empty chair at her table. Every single one was occupied. Angela nodded, and when he smiled, something inside her clicked. Like a lock finally opened with the right key. They started talking. Nick told her he was an architect and was getting married in 2 weeks. He said it without joy. Angela replied that she had a boyfriend, Diego, with whom she had been together for 3 years. Also without joy. They fell silent, looking at each other, and there was more truth in that silence than in any words. "This is crazy," Angela said quietly. "I don't know you at all, and I'm already afraid of losing you," Nick replied. The storm had passed. Angela went to meet a friend, but all evening she couldn't think of anything but his tired eyes. And Nick, returning home to his fiancée Linda, instead of discussing the banquet menu, locked himself in the bathroom and stared at an unsaved number on his phone. They met again 3 days later. This time, deliberately. Nick texted first. "I can't stop thinking about you. It's a problem." Angela read the message 10 times before replying, "I have the same problem. It's a disaster." They agreed to meet in the park. They walked until midnight, talking about books, their childhoods, their fears. Nick admitted that he didn't love Linda, that the wedding was his parents' will, that he'd simply drifted along until he met Angela. "And you?" he asked. "Do you love your Diego?" Angela was silent for a long time. Diego was a good man. Reliable. But with him, she felt less like a woman than a function, a convenient appendage to his career, his plans, his life. He never asked her what she wanted. "I thought I loved you," Angela said, "until I realized what love really is." They kissed on a bench under an old oak tree. And in that moment, they both knew there would be no turning back. When they announced their decision, the world collapsed. Not metaphorically, literally. Nick's mother threw a tantrum in the kitchen, smashed the china they'd inherited from their grandmother, and declared that he would disgrace the whole family. Can you imagine what people will say? 2 weeks before the wedding, Linda's already invited 100 guests. Linda cried. First she tried to get him back, then she threatened, then she pleaded. Nick stood his ground. He said it was wrong to marry without love. That Linda deserved someone who would burn for her, not just endure. Linda called him a coward, then a scoundrel, and a week later, a psycho who'd been seduced by that flirt. It was no easier at Angela's house. Diego didn't cry. He was too proud for tears. Instead, he came to her work, made a scene in front of everyone, called her a whore, and smashed her mug against the wall. Her colleagues averted their eyes. The boss called security. "You'll regret it," Diego hissed as they parted. "He'll leave you in a month. And I won't be around anymore." Angela's friends split up. Some said, "Follow your happiness." Others said, "You're crazy. You and Diego were stable." Still others simply silently deleted her from social media. Angela's parents brought out the big guns. Her father, a stern man who hadn't kissed her since childhood, came in person. He said, "You're disgracing our family name. You're leaving a good guy for some scoundrel who was supposed to marry someone else in 2 weeks. Do you think he won't do the same to you?" Angela didn't know what to say. She truly didn't know whether she would or not. But she knew one thing. If she backed down now, she would never forgive herself. Nick and Angela tried to swim against the tide. But the current proved stronger. Friends arranged, accidental, meetings with exes. Her parents pressed on her feelings of guilt. Linda and Diego, who had never met, suddenly teamed up. They wrote to each other, coordinated attacks, and hatched plots. One day, Linda came to Angela's house. She stood on the threshold, her eyes tearful, and said, "Give him to me. Please, I'll die without him." Angela was hurt. Really hurt. Because she understood Linda. But she also understood something else. Giving Nick away would mean betraying not him, but herself. "I'm sorry," Angela said quietly. "I can't." Linda's expression changed. She left without another word. The next day, she wrote in Nick's friends group chat that Angela had allegedly threatened her with physical violence. The slander spread instantly. Angela cried at night. Nick lay awake, clutching her hand. They understood, they were trying to crush them. And they almost succeeded. The turning point came the night Angela found punctured tires in her car. And the next day, Nick received a call from work saying that the major project he was overseeing had been transferred to another architect. Without explanation, Nick guessed. Linda's father was an influential man. They sat in the car in a vacant lot, looking at the night sky. Angela squeezed his hand. "They'll destroy us one by one." Nick was silent. Then he took out his phone, opened the map, and zoomed in. Thousands of kilometers. "And together?" he asked. Angela looked at the screen. To another continent. To a foreign country, where no one knew them and where they could start over. Without pressure. Without Linda and Diego. Without parents and well-wishers. "When?" she asked. "In a week. I have savings. Enough for tickets and the first month. And if it doesn't work out?" Nick turned to her. There wasn't fear in his eyes, but determination. "It will work out. Because I have nothing to lose. Except you." They flew away in the morning. Nick wrote Linda a farewell message. "I'm sorry. I can't be your husband. Not because you're bad. Because my heart is no longer mine." And he blocked her. Angela left the keys to the apartment with a neighbor with a note for her parents. "I love you, but I have to try. If not now, then never." At the airport, the final blow awaited them. Angela's father met them at the check-in counter. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He simply looked at his daughter and said, "If you leave now, you're dead to me." Angela looked at her father. At the man who never said, "I love you," but always said, "You have to." And suddenly she realized that she had lived by his rules her whole life. By Diego's rules. By society's rules. And now it was time to live by her own. "Goodbye, Dad," she said, taking Nick's hand. His father didn't follow them. The first year was hell. They rented a tiny room in a strange city where they didn't speak the language. Angela washed dishes at a cafe. Nick worked on a construction site, not as an architect, but as a laborer. They scrimped on everything. They slept on a mattress thrown directly on the floor. Sometimes they fought until they were hoarse, from exhaustion, from fear. From the fact that the world they had built was held together by a thread. But every night, when they lay next to each other, Angela felt his breath and knew it was the right breath. This was her man. 2 years later, Nick found a job in an architectural firm. Modest, but in his field. Angela learned the language and got a job at a publishing house, as she had once done. As a proofreader, but this time on another continent. They moved into an apartment with windows overlooking the ocean. 3 years later, Nick proposed. Without pomp, without 100 guests. Just in the kitchen, in a t-shirt and sweatpants, with a simple ring he had been saving for 3 months. "I can't promise you an easy life," he said. "But I promise I'll never look back." Angela said yes. And she didn't cry, because all the tears remained there, behind the glass doors of the airport. In her past life, where they wanted to separate her from the one for whom it was worth losing everything. They never returned to their homeland. Sometimes Angela receives letters from former friends, those who once betrayed her. They ask, "Do you regret it?" She answers, "I only regret not having done this sooner." Angela's parents sent a letter 5 years later. It was short. "We were wrong. Come when you're ready." Angela read it 3 times and put it away. She didn't reply. Because forgiving is one thing. But forgetting how she was called a whore and a traitor is quite another. Nick sometimes checks Linda's social media. She got married 2 years after their escape. Judging by the photographs, she's happy. Diego got married too. And it seems he even loves his wife. Everything ended well for everyone. Except for one thing, the terrible price they paid for their right to love. Do you think we did the right thing? Angela sometimes asks. Nick hugs her, inhales the scent of her hair, and says, "We did the only thing we could. Otherwise, we would have died, never knowing what it's like to be alive." The ocean roars outside. A foreign continent, a foreign country. But our loved ones are close by. And that's what matters.